Hello, my aviation family, students of aerodynamics and pilot students. If you've been watching my YouTube videos, you have seen some of them in which I talked about airfoils of the wings of an aircraft. I have defined several types of airfoils, and I have told you what they are and what is the main objective of those airfoils, which is to produce lift, because my goal is to tackle the subject of lift. But before doing so, I think it is very important to cover the airfoils, because airfoils are very important in the production of lift by the wings. So today we're going to have a conversation about the development of forces on airfoils. And as I have told you before, an airfoil is a slice of the wing. Actually, an airfoil in the wing is a section. Is an airfoil section. So the wing is made of, different airfoils at different sections of the wing. So you can imagine that when the airplane is flying, there are forces acting there are aerodynamic forces acting on the aircraft, and on the wings, on the entire airplane. So, but as we know, the wings of the aircraft, they are very crucial in producing the lift for the aircraft to take off the ground, and the lift produced by the wings, happens, according to different factors, including the relationship between the air and the airfoil, and the airfoils, or the airfoil, the big airfoil, which is the wing itself. So of course, if the airplane is moving, is passing the air, of course the air, there's movement, right? There's friction, between, there's friction between the air and the body of the aircraft and the air and the wings, because there's movement. And I think you can call that kind of aerodynamic force as skin friction. Okay, because as you know, the air is a gas, and the gas is made of particles that are moving at a fast speed and colliding with each other and creating some kind of resistance to the movement of the airplane, and that is a friction. That is a skin friction. That's one type of aerodynamic. That's one type of aerodynamic force that affect an airplane in flight. So we're going to have a conversation, an informal conversation about the development of forces on an airfoil. Okay, so let's say the Wright brothers, as you know, they were the one who actually were able to. They were the first ones who were able to fly a powered machine. Okay, so in order to do so, they have done something called wind testing. But precisely wind tunnel testing, in order to see how the air acts on the airfoil, mainly on the wing. Okay, so the Wright brothers have done so before they were able to accomplish the first powered flight, flying a machine heavier than air. Okay, so they did wind tunnel testing. Okay, in order to see the relationship between the air and the airfoil, to see how the air moving passing an airfoil acts, or the body, the airfoil, passing the air, moving through the air. How they wanted to see the effect, or the adverse effect that could be created during the relationship. But actually, the Wright brothers, what they were doing actually is continue the legacy of someone else, and that someone else was a scientist, was an Italian scientist by the name of Leonardo Da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci. That was about 400 plus years before the Wright brothers were engaged in doing wind tunnel testing. So that guy by the name of Leonardo da Vinci, that guy was, I can say, was the father of this process. Okay, testing, wind tunnel testing. Okay, to discover the effect of air passing over an airfoil, or an airfoil, okay, moving through the air. So Leonardo da Vinci, the Italian scientist, has done so. Whatever Wilbur and Orville did in this regard, they were just continuing the legacy of Mr. Da Vinci. According to Leonardo da Vinci, the action of a medium, the action of the medium, and we're going to consider the medium he was talking about is the air. The action of the medium, okay, upon a body, okay, which moves through which moves over a quiescent, okay, body, is the same as the action of a body moving through a medium that is impinging upon the quiescent body. Okay, let me see if I can explain this more clearly, because I'm not quoting Mr. Da Vinci. I'm just paraphrasing. So let me see if I can explain that more clearly for you, for us. Basically what he was saying is that if the airplane, if the air is still, okay, and an airfoil, which is part of the airplane, the wing, an airfoil is passing through the still air. The air is not moving, right? So if the action of the air not moving on the airfoil that is passing through it is the same action as if the airplane was still, was not moving, and the air was impinging upon the airfoil, the aircraft. That means the air was moving and the airplane, the airfoil was still. Okay? So I hope you understand. It's the same action. Whether the aircraft, the airplane is not moving and the wind, the air is moving over the wing, or the air is still, is not moving, and the airfoil, the aircraft is passing over it. The action, the effect of the air in either way will be the same on the aircraft, on the airfoil. So if you say the airfoil passing through the air and or the air flowing over the airfoil, passing over the airfoil, is the same. Those two terms are interchangeable. It's the same effect that is going to be produced by the medium, which is the air, on the body, on the airplane, on the airfoil, according to Mr. Leonardo Da Vinci. So this is the same concept that the Wright brothers follow in order to experiment with the development of forces on airfoils, on wings. Okay, so that being said, my next subject on my upcoming video will be about pressure disturbances on airfoils. But in preparation for that video, once again, it's going to be about pressure disturbances on airfoils. We're going to go over a few related terms. And the first one is flight path velocity. Flight path velocity. A flight path velocity is the speed and direction of a body passing through the air. The airplane is flying through the air, so its speed and direction, okay, is the velocity of is the velocity the velocity, which is the direction and the speed of the body through passing through the air. So one thing that there's one critical difference we need to make is speed. Speed is not velocity. Speed is not a vector. Velocity is a vector. Speed is just speed. To have velocity, we need speed and direction. So the speed of the aircraft may be 400 knots. Okay, but if there's no direction involved, so there's no velocity. So once again, a flight path velocity is the speed and direction of the airplane flying through the air. Okay, now when the airplane is flying through the air, there are dynamic forces that are taking place, and some of them having adverse effects on the airplane. The airplane is moving through the air. That means the air surrounding the aircraft is putting some resistance to the movement of the airplane. So that creates some sort of aerodynamic force around the aircraft, below at the body of the aircraft, under the wings of the airplane, the wings, the airfoils. So that type of force, frictional, those types of frictional forces, those are, I would call them static pressure forces. Okay? Static pressure forces. Okay, so one thing that we need to always remember is that when the aircraft is moving and all those forces are in play, there is another airstream that is created by the movement of the aircraft, okay, in opposite direction where the aircraft is going. Okay, so try to understand what I'm saying. The aircraft is moving. There are dynamic forces, static pressure forces, frictional forces that create some sort of turbulence around the aircraft, and then as a result of that, there is another airstream that is created, which is flowing in the opposite direction to the aircraft at the same speed, at the same velocity, okay, because it is created according to relative motion, and that airflow, that airstream flowing in the opposite direction to the aircraft is called relative wind. It has the same speed as the airplane. The only thing is, it is moving in the opposite direction of the aircraft, impinging on the body of the aircraft, impinging on the airfoils of the aircraft, on the wings of the aircraft. And this is relative wind. And then, so you could define relative wind as the speed and direction of the air moving of the air impinging on the moving body at the same velocity, but in the opposite direction of the moving body. So that is very important to know, because that relative wind creates some problems, can create some issues, for the aircraft, because first of all, we know that it creates drag, because it's trying to push the aircraft back, so that's relative wind. But that relative wind flowing in the opposite direction of the airplane, when it has a relationship, it has a very tight relationship with the airfoil, with the airfoils, with the wind, with the wing, or with the wings of the airplane, mainly with the chord line or chord lines of the airfoils, or with the chord lines of the wings. Okay, so let's imagine, okay, the aircraft taking off, the airplane taking off. But remember, the relative wind is going to reach the aircraft when it's taking off. It's going to reach the leading edge of the airfoil when it's taking off. The leading edge of the wings, the leading edges of the wings when the airplane is taking off. Picture an airplane taking off. Okay. An airplane does not take off in a straight line. An airplane takes off at a certain angle, right? So the chord line of the airfoil, of the wing, which is a big airfoil. The chord line, which is the distance. That's a line. That's a straight line drawn from the leading edge of the wing to the trailing edge. That's the chord line of the wing, which is a big airfoil. Of course, we have airfoil sections, okay? So now, the aircraft takes off at an angle, not straight, not in a straight line. So the chord line is like this, okay, at an angle. Now the relative wind is going to reach the chord line like this. So when that happens, there's an angle that is created between the relative wind and the chord line of the wing of the airfoil, which is the wing. Okay, taking off. This is the leading edge of the wing. This is okay, and this is the chord line, and the relative wind come right here, reaching the chord line, and you got an angle. Okay, so what is the name of that angle between the relative wind and the chord line of the wing? Well, the name of that angle is angle of attack. Angle of attack. Okay, so you could define angle of attack. Angle of attack, AOA alpha. AOA alpha as the acute angle created, or acute angle between the relative wind and the chord line of the wing. The acute angle between relative wind and the chord line of the wing. The chord line of the wing, which is the big airfoil. And that angle of attack is very important. That's why the airplanes have angle of attack sensors that give indications to the pilot if there's a problem in taking off, because that angle cannot be too. The angle of attack AOA cannot be too high. It cannot be too low. Okay, if any of those discrepancies can create disastrous consequences. Okay, so that's angle of attack. So you know about flight path velocity, relative wind, and angle of attack. Okay, now let's talk about aerodynamic force. Earlier I told you about some frictional aerodynamic force created by the air and by the viscosity of the air, which is a gas, and causing some resistance to the movement of the airplane. This is a type of aerodynamic force on the airfoil, on the plane, on an airfoil or on the plane, that really can have adverse effect on the body of the plane. And other aerodynamic forces as well that are even more critical than, well, that are equally critical as the frictional aerodynamic force. Those are aerodynamic lift force, and aerodynamic drag force. And remember we talked about relative wind. So all these things is all those forces are in relation to the relative wind and the chord line and the chord line of the airfoil, or the chord lines of the airfoils. So let's picture this. The airplane is flying, and then you have an airflow. This is the airplane. Okay. This is the airplane, and then if the airplane is flying this way. Okay, and now you have the airflow, which is the relative wind that is going to reach the nose and the leading edge of the wings, the leading edges of the wings, which are two big airfoils plus all the other airfoil sections. So now, right here, the aircraft's coming this way, the relative wind is going that way, hitting the aircraft. So now, that airflow, we know what it does. We know it creates, well, especially when the aircraft is taking off, it creates the acute angle with the chord line with the chord lines of the wings. Now, since we're talking about lift and drag now, two aerodynamic forces that have effect on the flight. So because we need to know what aerodynamic force is. So now this is the relative wind. Now there's a vector that is perpendicular to the relative wind, that is lift. That is aerodynamic lift. Okay? This is the relative wind, and there's a vector. Okay, aerodynamic vector that is perpendicular to the relative wind, that's lift. Now there's another vector, drag, that is parallel to the relative wind, right? This way. Okay? So what you do, you take the lift vector, and which is vertical, which is perpendicular to the relative wind, and you take that, you add it to the drag vector, which is parallel to the relative wind, and you draw a line. From the root, okay, from the root of the lift to the tip of the drag vector. You draw a line from the. You draw a line because remember. Okay, let me illustrate that again. This is the lift. So this is from the tip of the lift, from the tip of the lift arrow, from the tip of the arrow, from the tip of the arrow, from the lift arrow, you draw the drag. You draw the drag vector. Okay? Okay, so this is a lift, and from the tip of the lift you draw the drag vector. Now from the root of the lift vector, you draw another line, another straight line to the tip, to the arrow tip of the drag vector, and now you have the resultant aerodynamic force, AF, the resultant aerodynamic force, the total aerodynamic force on the aircraft. Did you get it? Yes, you did. Okay. This is you know about right angle, 90-degree angle, and then you have your resultant, and that's what it is. Okay, so that those two, the lift and drag, those are aerodynamic forces, two vectors in velocity, and then what you did when you get the resultant vector, using the Pythagorean theorem. So what you get the resultant, and that the resultant of the two forces are the resultant of the two forces is the total aerodynamic force. Okay, on a going on the top of the airplane. Okay, so that's what it is. All right. Now we're going to see. You know what I should do? I should actually stop right now, and then no, let me cover two more terms. Okay. What about yeah, lift? We know what lift is. I just explained lift to you. Okay, the lift is the force that is. The lift is a force that is trying to pulling the aircraft up, right? And drag is a force that is trying to drag the aircraft backward. So that's very simple. And those two forces create a resultant force. Okay, the total aerodynamic force on top of the aircraft. That's very simple. I can let me see. I can talk about. Remember, okay, vectors. You know, when we in aerodynamics, we deal with vectors. Okay, so the relative wind is the flow vector. Okay, the aerodynamic, the lift is a lift vector, drag is a drag vector, thrust is a thrust vector. You know, everything we're talking about vector. All right, so actually, when you know where we did when we added the lift vector to the drag vector, and we got the resultant vector, that is called vector resolution. Okay, you add vector to vector, and then you can get vector resolution. Okay, there's do you know what laminar flow is? Very simple. Laminar flow is just smooth flow. There's no, it's not a complicated concept. It just, if any time you hear laminar flow, it means simply smooth flow. And if I can explain a little bit, when the air is made of, when it's flowing, you have streamline air. Yeah, you have streamlines. Okay, airflow made of streamlines, and those streamlines, as the air is flowing, they are parallel to each other. Okay, and sometimes they are very close to each other, and sometimes they are very, very, very far apart from each other. So the smoothness of the airflow depends on those layers of streamlines, how close they are to each other or how far apart they are. So if they are very close to each other, more than likely they're going to create some kind, because all these particles, all these molecules fighting with each other, that could certainly create air turbulences. Okay, because they are so close to each other, they are fighting each other. But if they are kind of far apart from each other, they are not in close contact with each other, then more than likely you will get smooth airflow, laminar airflow. Remember, we are having a conversation. Okay, sometime in anything, sometime we can use our common sense to comprehend certain things. Okay, so okay, let's see. Now, one thing I want to talk about, it is very important. It's about something called center of pressure. Center of pressure on the chord line of an airfoil. Since the wing of the aircraft is a big airfoil, so we can say, okay, let's talk about the center of pressure. Okay, by the relative wind. Okay, acting with the chord line. First of all, we know that the center of pressure created by the relative wind is on the chord line of the airfoil. Okay, the chord line of the wing is somewhere on the chord line. So, as a matter of fact, not only that center of pressure includes the pressure created by the relative wind. The reason why it's called the center of pressure is because it may be on the, I'm talking about the center of pressure on the chord line of the airfoil. That center of pressure may include different types of pressure, aerodynamic pressures. Yeah, different types of aerodynamic pressures. The pressure, the point at which the relative wind reaches the chord line there's a point. At the same point, you may have the pressure created by the lift and the pressure created by drag on the chord line. Remember the chord line? The line, the straight line from the leading edge of the wing, the leading edge of the airfoil of the wing to the trailing edge. So on the chord line there's a point, the center of pressure, where the pressures are concentrating. So the center of pressure receives the pressure from the relative wind plus the pressure from lift, the pressure from drag. Right on the chord line, center of pressure. So I don't even have to define center of pressure formally. Just this illustration can help you understand what it is. But remember, that is, the center of pressure is on the chord line of the airfoil, or on the chord lines of the airfoil sections. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop. And next time I will concentrate on pressure disturbances on airfoils. Pressure disturbances on airfoils next time. So meanwhile, have a good day.